Is the U.S. safer 13 years after the 9/11 attacks? An ancient relic is unearthed in China. And brace yourselves for Top Gun Part 2. All of these stories and more coming up on The Rundown.
All right, stand by. 10 seconds.
Ready,
Talent.
Ready, camera.
And cue talent.
3, 2, 1.
Record.
Thanks so much for joining us. This is The Rundown, where we run down some of the big stories making headlines. I'm your host, John Phillips. Joining us from Washington, D.C. is PJTV contributor Michelle Fields, and right here in what's now sunny Southern California, stand-up comic Stephen Cruiser. Tomorrow marks the 13th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. A lot has changed since then. The top of The Rundown today is dedicated to the event that changed America 13 years ago, and we begin with Mr. Stephen Cruiser.
At the top of my rundown, some members of the 9/11 Commission are tearing into Congress for its handling of the growing ISIS threat. They say lawmakers haven't taken the threat seriously enough. Democratic Congressman Lee Hamilton of Indiana criticized Congress, saying, "You don't go on a 5-week vacation if you think the threat to the U.S. is imminent." He also criticized Congress for not passing the president's request for $500 million to train and equip moderate opposition forces in Syria. Another member of the commission said Congress should have identified ISIS as an emerging national security threat long before now. Now, this is a theme that's been heard a lot lately. I heard Dana Perino talking about it a couple times on Fox News recently. This isn't new information. People were being warned years ago. In fact, you want to talk about something inherited from the previous administration? It was the info that the problems in Syria would spill over, become this ISIS problem in Iraq right now. And so the fact that everybody's pretending to be caught off guard seems a little bit disingenuous. How are they getting away with disregarding information that's been sitting around since this 9/11 commission?
Well, let's make no mistake about what Lee Hamilton is doing here. We have a divided government. We have separation of powers, 3 branches. The President of the United States is the commander-in-chief. The President is responsible for responding to ISIS if there's imminent threat. It's not Congress. If he goes to Congress and asks for an act of war or asks for something specific, then Congress would step in and fill that role. But the President is the one that's dropped the ball on ISIS, and he's dropped the ball in foreign policy since he put his hand on the Bible. And Lee Hamilton is a Democrat with a crew cut, so they think that because Lee Hamilton is running around giving him cover, that this actually means something. The fact of the matter is the president's approval numbers, specifically on this issue, it's not only tanking him, but it's tanking the Democratic Party. I was watching Morning Joe this morning, and Chuck Todd was on as a guest, and he said that Barack Obama is doing to the Democratic Party on foreign policy what Jimmy Carter did. Yeah. And you know what? He's right.
He's doing Jimmy Carter level damage. That's I agree with you. I actually wrote a piece in the Tatler saying that, yes, they're mostly providing cover for the president right now. However, Michelle, Congress, the intelligence people in Congress have access to the kind of information that they should have known about all along, too. And at some point, I think, Tom Keene, one of the Republicans from the commission, came out and said, you know what, maybe now is not the time for partisan finger-wagging. I'm okay with spreading some of the blame here, not just the president, but with Congress, too. How about you?
Oh, definitely. The president was briefed about this a year ago, was briefed about how dangerous ISIS is and what a threat they are. So I'm going to assume that the intelligence community knew about it as well. So I think the blame goes all around. It goes to Congress. It goes to the president, because there isn't any leadership whatsoever. And I don't even think that they're communicating with one another. It seems as if everyone has just checked out and the American people are suffering because of it.
Yeah, foreign policy is a disaster, but the congressional part, I just want one adult in the room right now. That's it, just one.
Well, and this is going to weigh heavily on the Republican primary, because it's not very often that when you have governors that step in, and governors always make the best candidates, one of the criticisms of them is that they don't have foreign policy experience, unless they're governor of a border state or something like that. This might actually impact the Republican primary in that senators who typically don't make good candidates might step up and say, all right, well, this is a time when you might need someone with foreign policy experience.
Great point.
All right, Michelle, what do you have for us?
Okay, keeping up with the 9/11 theme, at the top of my rundown, Fox News anchor Megyn Kelly takes on a former college professor who compared 9/11 victims to Nazis. The exchange happened this week on Kelly's show, The Kelly File. She grills radical Professor Ward Churchill over his comments. Take a listen to what happened.
He made national headlines for suggesting the 9/11 victims deserved to die. A respected university professor calling nearly 3,000 murdered Americans, quote, little Eichmanns, comparing them to an infamous Nazi.
They made the system work by which profit is maximized at the expense of starving and dying children and other people in the third world. It's a matter of business as usual. This total amoral technical function being performed. That's Eichmann-like in my mind.
How could you draw a moral equivalence between 3,000 dead Americans and a murderous Nazi like Adolf Eichmann?
Well, first off, I did not make a reference to 3,000 Americans in that connection. I made a reference to what I described as a technocratic core of empire, which was a particular group within that 3,000.
The folks in the Twin Towers.
Twin Towers, there was also a body count at the Pentagon that day. So we have two separate groups here, but within that there are various subgroups.
You see a moral equivalence between the man who did that and said, I'm happy, I'll gladly jump into my grave knowing that all these Jews have died like animals. That's the same thing, the same mentality as the victims of Al-Qaeda in those Twin Towers had. That's your point?
Insofar as you lend your proficiency knowingly to a process that results in the mass immiseration and miserable death of third world brown-skinned children for profit maximization, it's not mysterious. Okay? When you do that, you're part of that process, which is a process of just routinely and continuously inflicting carnage on others, identifiable like others. Yeah, essentially you're the moral equivalent of Eichmann.
On the other hand, you
I think a lot of people obviously watch this and think, geez, my gosh, how can someone actually think this? But I don't think that this is that extreme when you see the people who are in America academia. I think a lot of them think this way. They think that Americans are murderers. Americans are responsible for horrible foreign policy. Are you guys surprised by this? These are the people who are teaching our next generation?
No, this guy operated in that system at the University of Colorado for years and years and years, and no one batted an eye. I find it hard to believe that it's the first time he said something like this. No. I had a college professor at Cal State Fullerton growing up here who blamed the LA riots on the Jews. And people complained to the department saying, well, not only is that completely inappropriate, it's factually incorrect. And they said, well, what are you going to do? She's entitled to her opinion. And that was that. So the college campuses, the universities, that's a separate place with completely radical political beliefs. And I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised. I'm surprised that they ended up getting rid of him. I mean, that was really the surprising aspect of the story to me.
And what disturbs me here is that Fox News gave him a forum now because he's such a loon. He's one of these cliche military industrial complex hippie professors, okay? He thinks he's a special snowflake. He's mouthing off stuff that every hippie professor in America is saying right now. But he's such a loon that the university got rid of him too. And that was years ago, and we don't need to be trotting this guy out in front of the general public again. Marginalize these fringe loons. Don't give them an even bigger forum. And I'm like, most of the time I don't say that much bad about Fox News right now, but this, I was upset when I heard that this interview was happening, and I'm still kind of dismayed that, and one of the most popular shows on Fox News primetime right now gave this loon a two-part interview forum.
Well, I mean, having these extreme views is one thing, but I mean, look what the left is doing in other aspects of the media. 9/11 Truther Rosie O'Donnell is now going to be the host of The View.
Yes.
The Huffington Post just hired a 9/11 Truther to be one of their principal correspondents on foreign policy. Yep. So, I mean, to me, that's more offensive than putting this guy on TV.
And one of the leading candidates for the Republican presidential nomination has a daddy who's a 9/11 Truther. So there's that.
All right, time to move to the top of my rundown, where the mayor of Philadelphia says the United States is safer since 9/11. Philly Mayor Michael Nutter made the comments during a recent interview at CNN. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
Do you all feel safer now in your city? Should your residents feel safer now in your cities than they did post 9/11? Mayor Nutter?
There's no question that we are safer, smarter, much more aware of world events, local events. Some of this insanity, is homegrown. if you will, right here in the United States of America. And so, but I mean, Candy, we have changed so many processes and procedures. Everyone experiences it every day. If you're flying, if you're on the railways, just the normal day-to-day. There is a new normal in America. Everything changed on September 11, 2001, and we're constantly building in new process, new procedure, new ways of getting information. The collaboration certainly is at its highest level. And so, you know, it's not like we've forgotten. We're only trying to get better. And on the ground, as, again, the other mayors have said, whether it's a fusion center, the fusion network, the offices of emergency management, we all talk and we communicate and coordinate with each other on a regular basis. It's just built in now. I mean, it's a part of the day-to-day activity in the United States of America. We know we have enemies. We know that there are threats out there. We still have to provide day-to-day service, but the level of coordination in the law enforcement agencies, the security agencies, is certainly at its highest level in a post-9/11 environment.
Michelle, he's 110% wrong, and 3 words disprove him. Nidal Malik Hasan. This guy was a jihadist operating in the United States military. We knew about it. We had proof. We had dozens of people saying there are problems with this guy. We have to do something about it. And because of political correctness, we were completely impotent. We didn't deal with it. And a bunch of Americans are dead because of it. The political correctness that permeates our government has grown since 9/11. It hasn't dissipated. It's grown, which makes us more of a target for these guys. Your thoughts?
I absolutely agree. And there's a new NBC poll out today that shows that almost half of Americans say that they feel less safe today than they did 9/11, pre-9/11. And I don't think that's because it's just a coincidence. It's because Americans are realizing that the threat of ISIS is serious. And on top of that, we have a border that's virtually open. The ISIS can just hop over the border and come here. And Democrats like to say, oh, we've been so safe since 9/11. Yes, thankfully we have, but you cannot forget the Boston bombing. You cannot forget the Times Square bombing, the Christmas bomber. I mean, these are serious national security issues, and to make it seem as though, oh, everything's nice and dandy is wrong.
Are we safer?
No, and the Boston bombing is another classic example right now. In theory, what the Department of Homeland Security was supposed to do was help all of these disparate law enforcement agencies in America coordinate information, work together better. That was the reason we added this whole new layer of government, which most of us didn't think we needed. But and with the Tsarnaev brothers, there were dots that could have been connected. Not the biggest ones, but there were enough that if you're working in intelligence, you should have been, oh, look at the travel, look where they went, look what they were doing. And that's none of that is still happening here. He can say calmly, like a politician whose name is Nutter, by the way, he can say...
I like his cookies.
Yeah. He can say, well, you know, we communicate every day. It's just built in the system. That sounded like such a stump speechy thing. I didn't. Yeah. I mean, even Candy Crowley just kind of like, she started to go to sleep while he was saying that. So yeah, we're not safer at all. And they may be communicating more, but I don't know what they're talking about.
All right, now it's time to move on to the sweet spot. This is where we take a look at some of the lighter and softer stories making news. And Michelle, you're up first.
All right, in my sweet spot, celebrities come together to help find whoever pulled a cruel prank on a teen involving the Ice Bucket Challenge. Drew Carey was horrified at the video that quickly went viral. It shows an autistic teen being covered in feces, urine, and spit during what he thought was an Ice Bucket Challenge. This is the video, and some high school peers apparently thought that this was funny. Carey sent out a tweet saying he wanted to start a reward fund and would donate $10,000. Other celebrities followed suit, including Jenny McCarthy, $10,000, and so did her husband. So far, the reward stands at $30,000. And, you know, this video is horrible, and I hope that they find out whoever were the teens responsible for doing this. I mean, it's just horrible.
Teens are very cruel.
Kids are awful. That's why this whole trying to legislate away bullying is never going to happen. Yeah. Children are little beasts, okay?
Testosterone.
I was one.
All right, Cruiser, you're up.
Whether we want it or not, Top Gun 2 is getting closer to being a reality. Screenwriter Justin Marks is in serious negotiations with Paramount Studios. Peter Craig has also been tapped to write the new sequel to the 1986 film. No word on casting, but the film will center around Tom Cruise's character Maverick and involve a drone aircraft. Producer Jerry Bruckheimer, who helped make the first film, is one of the driving forces behind the project. Latest rumors are that Tom Cruise is on board, and there may be no more iconic 80s movie than Top Gun, but I get a little weirded out about sequels that many years later. There's just so, I mean, even The Color of Money, which won Newman an Oscar, was still kind of, compared to the original, it's just kind of, oh, it's sad. I don't like sequels this many years after the fact.
You know, there was a big research project that was done that the LA Times wrote about, and they were trying to figure out what stars young kids responded to, what stars were box office blow-ups where they would just bring people in and make a lot of money. And what they found was interesting. It wasn't the stars, it wasn't the starlets that brought people to the movie theater, it was the franchise. It's Superman that brings people in. They don't care who Superman is, they just want to come see Superman. They want to see Top Gun. So I think it's good to have Tom Cruise in the project because the people that like the first one will come see it for that reason. But for the younger kids, they don't care about Tom Cruise. It's just the Top Gun franchise.
Interestingly enough, there was a great article about 2 months ago in the LA Weekly saying that Cruise really probably is the last real movie star that was automatic box office gold like that. And now there's the big shift. And even he's shifted into this, I just want to do action flicks portion of his career now. But it was the name of the article was The Last Movie Star. Great. You can find it at the LA Weekly online.
Seems reasonable to me. And finally in the sweet spot, an ancient sword is found in China. An 11-year-old boy found the 3,000-year-old sword while washing his hands in a river. Experts say the sword comes from the Sheng or Zhou dynasties. How did I do with that, Cruiser? Did I come
Pretty
close?
Good. I think it was, good enough.
Sheng or Zhou? Zhao? Okay.
Oh, whatever. I would have said Zhu.
Leave the Jews out of this, Cruiser. All right, so anyways, the offers to buy the sword have been coming in from all over the world, and I would check eBay or Craigslist if you're interested in that. You want that baby up above your fireplace?
That would be awesome. Well, I like samurai swords better.
All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Would you pay to see Top Gun 2 in the theaters? Plus, we invite you to leave your thoughts on the 13th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks in the comments section below. I'm John Phillips. For Stephen Cruiser joining me here in Los Angeles and Michelle Fields in the nation's capital. Thanks so much for watching The Rundown.